For those who've been following me for a while, they know that I love this brand. I love Sinn. It's a German-made brand. It's a wonderful company, about 60 years old. I really enjoy their products. I really enjoy their watches. I think some of the finest stuff coming out of Germany that's affordable. Very toolish, very industrial, very cool. And Damasko is a relatively new company, and they're out of Germany as well. And you know what? I thought today, look, I'm going to have a look at this watch. How does it compare with my Sinn? They're both entry-level watches. The Damasko comes in at pretty much the same price, a few dollars less than the actual Sinn. This is the 556 range. This is the DS30. How good is this Damasko? Now, upon close inspection, the watch itself seems to be built very well. In fact, its tolerances are very, very comparable to the Sinn. I can see the engineering behind it, the fine build quality, not a problem whatsoever. Now, the specs of the Damasko are quite nice because it comes in at about 39mm case diameter, a 9.9mm case height, which is superb, lug-to-lug distance of 46.7 and a lug width of 20mm. And if we compare that to the Sinn, those specs are very close. The main difference being the Sinn is about a millimeter thicker, but also features a smaller lug-to-lug distance. On the wrist, as you can see, the Damasko sits very comfortably, especially with that case height of 9.9mm, very welcome. The lug-to-lug distance of this watch is 46.7. At 39mm, it seems to have a nice presence on the wrist. In comparison, the Sinn, as you can see, it's a 38.5mm. It does look a little bit smaller on the wrist, albeit that case height is 1mm higher. But overall, a very similar footprint with a smaller lug-to-lug distance of 45.8. Now, the dial real estate on both watches is very similar. The layout's very similar. The only difference is, as you can see, there's a date complication at 3 o'clock. There's a date complication here between 4:30. And that one there, for me personally, I prefer the 4:30 because I think that's hidden. It's there, it's unobtrusive. When you want a date, you know it's there. It's not breaking up that symmetry. Now, this is where it gets interesting because the Damasko itself, the case is a submarine steel and it's very, very strong. And I think at that price point, that leaves Sinn for dead because that's basically 316L stainless steel. That's submarine steel. So you do get a harder steel in Sinn products. However, you do need to pay a premium. It comes in at a higher price. Whereas the Damasko, it's already included at that price point. Now, when it comes to the movements of both watches, they both feature ETA 2824-2 Swiss movements. The Damasko itself, as you can see, it's a standard base model off the shelf, whereas the Sinn features an elaborate grade. Blued screws, gold signed rotor, better refinement, better detail. And interesting, on the time grapher, both watches perform very well. They both seem to be regulated, which is great. The main difference I can see on the time grapher is that the Sinn seems to have a nice, healthier, stronger amplitude. Apart from that, they're both running very well. Now, the Lume on both watches is Swiss Superluminova. The Sinn features the older C1 formula, whereas this is, I believe, is the X1. And just looking at the transition, you can see that they're both nice. They're not spectacular, they're not dive watches, they're not pretending to be. They're basically modern pilot's watches that can give you a read of the time in subdued light. Now, in comparison to the two, for me, the Damasko's got that slight edge. I think Damasko, as a company that's relatively new in horology, in producing watches, they've got a great little product here, especially at entry level with that solid submarine steel case, really good tolerances, really well built. Now, the crowns on both watches are signed, screw down, and they both offer 200 meters of water resistance. And the Damasko comes in at 5.6 millimeters, whereas the Sinn comes in at 5.7 mil. So neither here, neither there. The action on the Damasko, let's unscrew it. A healthy pop out, 2 clicks, and we can hack that movement and adjust the time. Lock it in, it starts again. The winding experience, as you'd expect from an ETA, very nice, beautifully dampened, very nice. And the latch down experience, first time, buttery smooth, locks in. You got 200 meters of water resistance. It's very comparable to the Sinn, albeit I find the Sinn is just that little bit more refined. Maybe it's got to do with the actual steel. Now, the crystal on the Damasko features anti-reflective coating on the underside as well as the top. And you can see there's a very subtle, very slight green hue. In fact, I found that the crystals, the actual Sinn, seems to be doing a slightly better job at keeping contrast. As you can see there in the comparison, that's slightly less in contrast, that's slightly more. Not a great deal, but the Sinn is definitely ahead. Lastly, when it comes to legibility, as you can see with the Damasko, with those large sword hands, they extend all the way to the center of that dial. Fantastic. Very easy at a glance to read the time. The Sinn, for me, look, the fact that they're blackened in the middle, they look like they're floating. It's a nicer look overall. This is a visual preference of mine. However, when it comes to reading the time at a glance, the Damasko is a little bit better. So finally, is the Damasko a good value proposition? Well, I think yes. The fact that these guys offer submarine steel is fantastic, albeit the movement is not as good as the base model of the Sinn, but it still seems to be regulated, which is quite good. So a really nice, strong product. A lot of guys are going for these over the Sinn. Both watches are pretty much on the same price point. The main difference, stronger steel, thinner case, better movement, better history. But end of the day, a very nice brand, a very nice watch. Hit me up in the comments, guys. Let me know what you think about this, if you guys have got these watches. For me, I can see a very well engineered watch, beautifully designed, albeit I can see this watch brand maturing as the years go on. They're going to become a better, stronger player in the market and hopefully offer a lot more variety in their watches, just like Sinn. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Let me know what you think about the Damasko. This is the DS30, the entry-level watch. Comparing it to my 556, very cool, very well made, and a very modern pilot's watch at that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video.